Welcome to the From Guilt to Good podcast, where we discuss all things caregivers wish people would talk about, but don't, won't, or can't. Hi, my name is Jeanette Yates. I'm a lifelong caregiver for my mom and the founder of The Self Caregiver, where I help caregivers feel good, not guilty. And I'm super excited for today's guest. We are welcoming Nina McCollum. She's a 56-year-old writer and actor living in Cleveland, Ohio, aka my dream jobs. So love this. She became a sandwich generation caregiver in 2022 when her mother suffered an episode of medication-induced psychosis, which caused a 50-day hospital stay and nearly killed her mother. She survived, but was left with a permanent cognitive impairment. Nina's mother now lives in memory care, and Nina is responsible for all of her mother's appointments, finances, and care decisions. And she's the parent of a teenager. So, tons of time and space in your life, right? Nina is, I quote, met her on TikTok. I don't know. Nina, do you feel like when you see people on TikTok and you watch a lot of their stuff, like you start to know them a little bit? Is
I
that?
do. I definitely do. I think it's I always say that I think that TikTok has the best algorithm of any of the social media
Yeah.
platforms because it really does sharpen whatever it is that you're interested in.
Yes.
And so you get to see some of the same people, some of the same folks in your age group. I mean, there's a lot of people that think it's just like, trendy dances or Coachella
Right.
outfits or whatever. And of course it is that, but it is whatever you're interested in and whatever you
Right.
follow. I think it's a great online community, and I'm not, I don't talk to people in the immediate city where I live because I don't have anything in common with those folks. So it's great to have that online community.
Yeah, I'm really loving the community that I found over there as well. And the reason, we talked about this a little bit before I hit record, but just so our listeners know, the reason that I asked you on, I think the first time you popped up in my FYP, you were actually responding to someone's ignorant comment on you on a previous post. And I was like, I need her. I need to talk to her more
Yeah.
because
My kid says, let it go. You can't respond to everybody. You have to stop commenting every time somebody comments. And I'm like, no, I don't.
right. Well, yeah, like you don't have to, but also you can. That's what, like you don't have to respond, but also you can. And I think a lot of times, when there's someone out there saying the things that we don't have the courage to say, or maybe we wish we can say, but it just makes us feel icky inside, or we can't quite articulate what it is we want to say, but then we hear someone else saying it. I think that does something, gives us a little, lift, a little internal encouragement. And so I really appreciated that. And I feel like I say hard things, because I've been doing this caregiving stuff for a long time, and I do. But your response, well, and I think it was like somebody was like making a comment about like whether or not your person should be somewhere or whether they should be with you or something. I don't even remember, but
Right.
you were just like,
How
who the
dare
hell are
you?
you?
Yeah. How dare you
And
put your mother in a facility?
yeah, yeah. And that's something that I kind of talk about a lot because I know in my own experience, I was brought up to never, ever, ever put my mom in a nursing and and she kind of nailed that in my brain nonstop. And then, she's in a nursing home. And like I talk a lot about how I had to get rid of all that negative stigma, even when it was mostly internal, in order to be able to do that without, it crushing
Well,
my
and the
soul.
reality is that there's no good solution.
Right.
There's no fair solution.
Right.
There's problems with every solution. And
Yeah.
so I try to pull back the curtain a little bit on the problems that I'm having and the challenges that I see and how I'm navigating it and how I'm trying to make it decent to the best of my ability. And yeah, I'm stubborn and I fight hard and all that, and we can get into that, but there's no perfect solution.
Right. Right.
So, people who have decided for whatever their reason or ability that they are going to care for their loved one at home are also facing a lot of
Yeah.
challenges.
Right.
So, it's no good choice.
Well, one of the things that you do, and I would love to kind of start here with our conversation, is you do a lot of educating just by sharing what you're going through in the process of jumping through the paperwork hoops and the medical hoops. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to share that and how you think, based on, the feedback that you're getting, how do you think it's helping other people?
Yeah. So the nightmare that I've been going through with my mom for the last 3 years
Mhm.
would have been twice as hard when I started had she not already created planning documents with
Yes.
an elder care attorney. And so I harp on that a lot to my friends
Yes.
and, and to anybody who will listen, because my mom got a little spooked a year before all this happened. She was a little spooked by her older sister who recently passed. She had been taking a lot of falls at home and she was getting worse, and my mom was getting a little weirded out. And so she decided to get all her documents together. She had had a will, but she got a living will. She got a power of attorney for healthcare, HIPAA release, so that
Mhm.
I would be in charge of all this stuff. And then she decided that it was no longer safe for her to be in her house
Mhm.
and that she was going to move to a senior independent living apartment complex. And so the house was put into a trust, and but when this all this happened, I would not have been able to make all of the decisions that I've been able to make, to walk into the bank and be like, here's the POA, I
Right.
need this, fax it to whoever, when I'm literally on the phone with whoever and they're like, well, we need permission, we need to talk to
Right.
your person. So that's something that I talk about a lot because I think it's everybody should have a
Yeah.
will. You don't have to hire a lawyer. There's stuff you can download for free, customize it, and get it notarized, and it's legal. But you've
Yeah.
got to have somebody who can make legal decisions for you, healthcare decisions for you if you're not able to. It's super duper important. I have had those most of my life because I've been chronically sick since I was 20 years old. When I was 24, I had a couple of very big major GI surgeries. And at
Mhm.
that time, that was when I first developed a will. I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't have anything, I didn't own anything, but it was like I just wanted to write down what I wanted done with my stuff, you know?
Right.
So it's really important.
Well, I've interviewed on this podcast Adam Zuckerman. He founded Buried in Work, and it's basically, like you said, a website. Everything you could possibly need to download, or if you want to go and find a elder care attorney in your area, all this kind of stuff, or you just want to start having the conversation with your parent, because my mom and your mom sounds like my mom did the same thing, where she's been sick since 1984, so she kind of, we needed these documents already, kind of. But at the same time, like you say, when the rubber hit the road and I actually needed them for the first time ever, I was like, oh, and I know exactly what to do here.
Right.
Anyway, Adam with Buried in Work, he talks about if you are 18 and you aren't, if you have clothes, if you're wearing clothes and you're
Right.
18, you have
That's
an
a
estate.
mistake. Yeah.
So according to the law, you have an estate. And if you don't have a piece of paper that is documents what you want, the government gets to decide, the law gets to
Right.
decide what happens.
Right.
And so even if it's just the shirt off your back, you get to decide what happens to that. And if you don't, someone else will determine what happens to your estate. And
Right.
so that was
And
an
your
interesting
body.
way to
I
put it.
mean,
Yeah.
and whether or not you're cremated or buried,
Yeah.
you know?
Right.
So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. You mentioned too that, which I think is also, and feel free to tell me to shove it, you don't want to talk about it, but you mentioned that you also have your own health issues. Do you still struggle? Is that something that like you have to add into the equation of caring
Yeah,
for
I
everybody
mean,
else?
that's on top of everything else. I mean, I try very hard to stay fit and active, but I have challenges that other people don't have. The surgery I had when I was 24, it's called a total proctocolectomy with an ileoanal anastomosis, which is basically they take out your entire large intestine and your rectum for ulcerative colitis. You go in a bag for 3 months, and then you have a second surgery where they connect back up your small intestine that's left. And so I live with chronic dehydration and
Mm,
vitamin deficiencies and fatigue and stuff like that. And then when you add all that in with the physical problems that I have, so I have a number of back problems
right.
because I'm 50 something and I've broken vertebrae in my back twice. I've broken a lot of ribs. I've broken a lot of bones because my bones are weakened from the years I was on prednisone.
Right.
So I have back issues. And so I can't stand for super long periods of time. One of the reasons I can't care for my mom, even though she's a little thing, is because I can't physically manipulate her.
Mm-hmm.
It's a weird, degenerative disc disease is a weird thing to have wrong with your back because I can walk for a long time, but I can't stand for a half hour.
Ugh, right.
It's tough. So I do have other things that I battle on top of it. I've lived with these things for so long that I try not to consider them as extra conditions, especially when I know how much a lot of other people are dealing with who are
Right.
also dealing with these things. I always say that although I have a lot of problems, I'd still rather have my problems than a lot
Right.
of other people's problems, and TikTok's great for reminding you why you should be grateful.
Right.
If you can see and you can hear with hearing aids and
Yeah.
whatever. So yeah, I have a lot of physical challenges on top of it, that I deal with.
Well, I want to point out to our listeners something that you just said here, which was when, it's, and I don't, you probably like most of us, when we're trying to make a decision, we're just making it. And then, we do the best we can. And then we might go back in retrospect. But it does sound like you were part of the equation when you were thinking about what's best for your mother. And, I think it's important for us to make sure that we are saying, am I going to be able to take care of myself the way I need if we do plan A, plan B, plan C, right? Whatever. And I think that's something that a lot of caregivers, a lot of daughters, a lot of sons, they're not doing when they're just like, oh, this is what my loved one wants. I'm going to do this. Now, I think you've also said that like your mom also like has agency, and she's not where she is because she doesn't want to be there. This is did she make, I want to say, I can't remember what you were saying about like when she decided to
So
go in.
she decided that her house was too much for her
Right.
and that she wanted to move to senior living, basically like an apartment with a little bit extra. It's
Right.
basically,
So it was like it was seniors, but it was like independent living
right, like a
within there.
55 plus complex, and they
Right.
don't really help you with anything. It's completely independent living, other than, you have to check in every morning. You have to like hit a
Gotcha.
buzzer and be
Oh
like,
yeah.
I'm alive.
I remember when I was little, we like did some volunteering in a place like that, but that's not where she is now. She's now in a different.
No, so she
Okay.
moved there in April of 2022,
Okay.
and this episode happened. She was hospitalized in July,
Gotcha.
same year. Basically, I don't know that she loves where she is. She's on a lot of happy medications, so she
Right.
doesn't hate it. But it's not where she or I anticipated that she would end up. It's just sort of ended up being a series of, oh, well, there's deterioration. What's next? There's deterioration. What's next?
Yeah.
And so that's why she's moved 5 times in the last
Right.
3 years.
Yeah. But I think I do remember seeing you do a TikTok about like your mom did make the decision to leave her house and go into
She
that
did.
first place. And
She
like,
did.
I remember, I think you got like people had comments about that.
There's a lot of people, and people are allowed to think what they want, and people can make
Right.
their own decisions for themselves. And I'm really glad that my mom made this decision. I have a lot of friends and people that contact me on TikTok who are wrestling with this right now with their elder, because the elder wants to stay at home. And it's
Right.
really bad for them to
Yeah.
do that. I'm
Right.
not saying it's bad for everyone, but what happens is the family members end up trying to create solution after solution and add band-aid after band-aid and carve out after carve out and help after help after help, trying to keep this person in their house.
Yeah.
Where I understand you've been there for years, you're very comfortable, but when they need more and more supervision and more assistance, it becomes a nightmare for everybody to try to provide 24/7 care for somebody,
Right.
just because they want to stay in this physical building that's filled with a lot of glassware that's just going to get thrown out when they pass away.
Right. Well, and that's what happened to me because my mom, the way she was brought up, you took care of the loved one, that's what she told me. Like I knew one person, great aunt Edna, was in a nursing home and we would go see her. But, that was the only person I knew.
I kind of hate I see this on TikTok a lot. I'm glad you brought this up because it really makes me fucking angry. Where there's like, it's a jokey post that somebody will put up and be like, otherwise you're going to end up in the home.
I
Like,
know.
mom, you have to do what I want or you're going to end up in the home. Like it's the worst fucking thing that you could do to your person.
Right.
And I think that's really not fair. I
Yeah.
also think that it's often really not a good solution to leave that person in their home
Right.
when they're rotting, they're alone, they're
Mhm.
lonely, they're desperate, they're in danger, they get hurt. There's a lot of things wrong with staying at home as well. And while I understand a lot of families have this like, oh, never put me in a nursing home. My mom's thing was that she didn't want to be in the condition that my grandmother was in when she was in a nursing home.
Right.
Because my grandmother had surgery that left her with dementia.
Mm.
This happens to a lot of older people. She never really came back to herself, and she had to go and live in
Right.
a skilled nursing facility and get a lot of help. She didn't live there that long. She was really not mentally well while she was there. And she was on a feeding tube because my mom's siblings were arguing because there was no will,
Well,
there was no
right.
living will, and there was no power of attorney for healthcare. They argued about prolonging her life. And so they put her on a feeding tube and it unnecessarily prolonged my grandma's life. And she was miserable and she was angry and she was crazy. And my mom, said, I don't want that to happen to me. And that's part of why she developed these documents saying, don't resuscitate me if I'm in a vegetative state and that kind of thing.
Right. Well, and like for me, my mom, had said this her whole life, and then she's telling, at different parts of my life, she's like, if you ever do that, you'll basically be killing me. I mean, was just like so much stress,
Right.
But then like it's interesting that you described like the Band-Aid, the Band-Aid, the Band-Aid, because that's what was happening. And I've described it before as like every night when I would leave her in her apartment, because she couldn't even like even if we wanted to, which we didn't, she couldn't have lived here anyway, but she lived like 3 minutes down the road in a accessible condo, blah, blah, blah. I would every night I would leave, it was like a game of Jenga. Like everything had to be
right.
exactly.
I got everything. And then you're laying there waiting for the call. I fell,
Yes.
I this, I that.
Every
That's
night.
not necessarily better for the person either.
No,
So
no.
my thing is, I mean, obviously it's not something I can do myself all alone. But what I do in the microcosm for my mom is work to make sure that she's having the best experience that she can have where she is, where she has 24/7 help if she needs it, or if she falls, somebody knows about it and they can get to her and they get an ambulance and they transport her.
Yeah.
When is somebody flipped out a couple of weeks ago and like punched an aide and there was somebody else that came around and got everybody back to their rooms.
Yeah.
And, where there's meals served at a predictable time that are acceptable for everybody's dietary.
They're not the best.
They have activities. It's hard to have activities and stuff for everybody in these facilities that are because everybody's at different levels. And my mom goes up and down in whatever levels that she's at. But I think this is, it's more peaceful for her, and it gives me more peace of mind knowing that she's in this place.
Well, and you bring up another good point too, that I think there's a big myth out there that like, if you're not doing it yourself, you're not really caregiving. And I can testify, and it sounds like you can too.
I washed my hands of my mom and stuck her in this place.
Yeah, we're pretty busy making sure.
Every day I do something for my mom.
Yeah.
I spent just this week alone, I probably spent 3 hours trying to get a dental claim paid for her. And I don't know if you saw, I don't know if I put it up on TikTok, but I finally submitted her Medicaid application this past week. I had to take it to the post office and buy a special folder because there was this much paper. It was almost an entire ream of paper that I have been gathering, printing, taking to the library, making copies of for 8 months, getting ready for this Medicaid application.
Yeah.
There's calls every day. There's stuff to schedule. There's, it's not like And then I talk to my mom as well. She wants to talk to
Right.
me pretty much every day. And there's stuff that she needs. She makes a little list and then she calls me when I'm going to come out. I have to get up tomorrow at like 5 in the morning because her facility is 40 minutes away from where I live. And she has an 8 a.m. doctor's appointment. And in order for me, a dentist appointment, in
Yeah.
order for me to get her to the dentist, out from her building and to that dentist office at 8 o'clock, I mean, I have to get up at the crack of dawn.
I
So
know.
it's definitely not like a washing your hands kind of thing just because your
Right.
person is in a facility,
For sure. For sure. And of course, we've said this already, but I'll say it again. We're not advocating for everyone to put their loved one in a nursing home. What we're saying is, I want people to take the guilt and the stigma out of the decision-making process
Yeah.
and look at what is actually best for their loved one. And then I also, like I mentioned with you, I think it's really important to include your own health and well-being and your family's health and well-being in like, is the math going to work? Is it going to work? Like, is this going to work? What is this going to require of me? Can I keep my job? Can I take care of myself? Can I take care of my child? That kind of thing.
Would like to see people treat it more like parenting,
Yeah.
where we work really hard. We fall all over ourselves if somebody's doing something different, as long as it's not harmful, and say, well, that's not my kid. That's not my
Right.
decision to make.
Right.
I mean, again, short of causing harm, people raise their kids in very different ways. They have
Right.
different things that they think are acceptable and normal and okay for whatever age or phase or activity or
Hmm.
whatever. And people tend to be very, like, well, that's not my kid. That's not how I would do it
Right.
for my children. And I would like to see more of that in the elder care community for sure.
Yes, I totally agree. I think that's a great way to put it. Is like there is so much stress and overwhelm and all of that as part of, you know, watch, watching your parent age and being a part of that really we need to spend more time uh encouraging each other and supporting each other in that, whether
Yeah,
or not we, like think it's a even if we personally are like, I think that idea sucks. Like we don't
right.
have to say that.
Right. There's a lot of people that support each other online in all different spaces that are moms. Like, oh, I'm going through this with my kid, and oh, you get lots of support. But there's not as much for all the stuff that we're dealing with as caregivers and that reverse action
Mhm.
compared to parenting, where with parenting it was a choice that you made most of the
Right.
time,
Right.
and that it's someone that you're preparing for them to go out in the world.
Right.
It's something that you chose to do and you take joy in these things because you're nurturing this person and one day they're
Right.
going to leave the nest and this is your job and it's for this limited time, but it's something that you feel really good about. Whereas with caregiving, it's something that you're handed. It's something
Mhm.
that feels uncomfortable. It's someone going the other way who needs
Right.
more and more and more care as time goes on, who gets more and more burdensome and less like the person that you knew. And
Mhm.
you have loss of the person that you cared about and the relationship of that person that you depended on to be in a particular way that you would interact with that person in your life. And then
Mhm.
that's over and you have to take over. I mean, I have
Right.
often said that my mom at times is like an android that looks like my mom and has all of my
Mm.
mom's memories, but she doesn't sound like my mom. Her voice is different. She doesn't
Mhm.
think like my mom. She doesn't say stuff like my mom used to. And the warm relationship that we had, I mean, part of it is all the stuff that's wrong with her brain, but also she's on a lot of medication to keep
Right.
her, happy and not fighting with the AIDS or whatever.
Right.
And she's just not the same person. And I
Yeah.
actually had a really big thing happen this past August where, my mom has been on all these medications now since 2022 and we add stuff and we increase it and we add this to takes care of these side effects and add that to take care of that. So the person ends up being on what my mom used to say, on everything but roller skates after a while. And I always had this nagging thought of like, what if we just stopped all the meds? I
Yeah.
wonder if what happened to her, like if she got over it. And I wonder if she would just go back to being like, I so
Mm.
desperately miss that woman that
Mhm.
I thought, I just wonder what would happen. And I'm probably always going to wonder, well, life said, wonder no more. Because my mom also has bipolar. She had a manic episode in August in her last facility. She completely flipped out. She went into somebody's room when they were sleeping and tried to wake them up, which is like assault.
Yeah.
She
Right.
was saying a lot of disturbing things to people. They insisted that she go by ambulance to the mental hospital. And I was like, let me come out and get her. And I took her to the hospital. We had to wait about 30 hours for her to get seen by the psych person, the geriatric psych person on call at the hospital. So no meds. She had had no meds all day and then
Mm.
30 hours at the hospital. And then they admitted her to the geriatric psych hospital. And then they didn't start her on any meds for like a day or two because it takes a while to get the
Right.
orders and
Yeah.
order more stuff. And they got to talk to the facility. So she was completely off her meds and it was a disaster.
Yeah.
It was horrible. It was horrifying. She couldn't sit still. She couldn't put a sentence together. She was unrecognizable. She was
Right.
like a wild animal. And I tried to visit with her and talk with her, and the only way I was able to actually get through to her and get her to listen to me was by singing a song. And she
Aw.
joined me in singing the song. Like that was the only time she actually looked at me, and we were like
Aw.
singing this song, and like there has to be a guard in the room with you in those places, and the guard was just sitting there like, I've seen everything. You guys go ahead.
You're like, join in. I
But
mean
I
it.
but I had I
Yeah.
got my answer, which is
Yeah. Right.
that lady's
Yeah.
gone, you know?
Yeah.
So that
Well,
was
and I think that's kind of where I am now, like where it's like I keep trying to trying to find my mom.
yeah,
And like there's like shadows of her, but she's not really there
right,
anymore.
right,
And so like that's really tough. But I love that you mentioned like the reverse nature because parenting is like preparing, they become increasingly more independent. And
right,
and caregiving is not only like you say, sometimes like out of the blue, you don't know, but you're not growing up thinking one day you're going to be a caregiver. You may grow up thinking one day you're going to
right,
be a parent, but you don't ever think about it. And then, it happens, but it's more and more dependence on other people, on you, on, caregivers, doctors,
yeah,
medications, things like that. And to your point, the reversal of, the decision making process, is difficult. I do say, with dementia, it is different. And with mental, and, you know, there are, I have family members, including my mother, my stepfather, where there was also mental illness, right? And so that all plays a little bit differently. But a lot of times I think we start arguing with our parents because they're making choices we don't want. And it's like, well, as long as they're still of sound mind, they have the right to make a choice that you think is stupid.
mhm,
Now, you have the right to not keep bailing them out of their, like, I could have stopped playing Jenga with my mom's situation a
right,
long time before I did, right?
right,
Didn't I didn't have the tools to do that until therapy and whatnot. But I think that sometimes it's like there will be a time probably that you have to step in and make those decisions. But like I think sometimes we either adult children aren't doing it soon enough,
mhm,
or they're like, so it is kind of like dumped on that there's some sort of accident, diagnosis, something, and they're like, crap, I don't even know the name of the doctor, or whatever, like you don't. But then there's other times where there's this, we're trying to insert ourselves when our parents are still capable of making those decisions. And my situation was a little bit different because my mom was extremely cognitively able to make her decisions. She was considered one of the like experts in her disease and, this area kind of
mm,
thing. So she knew a lot and could make a lot of decisions. And so I had to learn especially as things got worse, to be like, well, I don't agree with it, but like, it's her body, it's her, and she has the, right to make this decision. And then it only when it was really hurting her and like not safe, did I have to say, okay, I'm going to make a different decision. But even then, and this was the hard part, she was still considered cognitively able to make her decisions.
Right.
But she was making a
I talk with
decision that
people
wasn't
about that,
safe.
like
Yeah.
the decision about to take the keys, like
Right.
that's a thing. I mean, even with everything that happened with my mom, she was telling me, I think I could still drive. If you just took me out to someplace like a field somewhere or like a
Right.
deserted road, just let me try. I bet I could. And I'm like, no,
Right.
we're not doing that.
Yeah.
No, like
Yeah.
you haven't seen your MRIs, but
Right.
I have. And somebody
Right.
may,
And there is a little bit of that, like, that your parent better than anybody on the internet,
right.
than even maybe your other siblings, if you have siblings, like
Yes,
maybe you're the one.
definitely.
And so, like, there is that, a constant tango of stepping in, stepping out, stepping in, stepping out, like figuring, where do I need to insert more influence here versus where can I let this go?
It's I'll tell you, it's really hard because and you over examine everything,
Right.
but I only have one kid. I was only able to have one kid. I was very lucky to have him via IVF,
Mm,
but I always wanted more kids. And when I went through IVF, I created 3 embryos and I had to make a decision what to do with the embryos. I've written about this. And because I couldn't afford to freeze them, try later, each procedure like that is multiple thousands of dollars. And I
hmm
was already 40. And so to maximize my chances with this one time that I could do it, I put back all 3 embryos, knowing that all 3 of them could implant. Each one of them could divide. I could end up with 6 babies, 9 babies, like
Wow.
you have to take that kind of, you have to, know what you're going to do if it ends up being that. And so I put all 3 embryos in. So I was not only able to have the one child. That
Mm.
I'm very, very lucky. But I've always thought, like, gee, maybe I should have tried to adopt another baby or whatever. And now, when this happened with my mom, it's like I was given another kid that I have to be in charge of, but I don't get any of the benefits.
Yeah.
And it's not rewarding, and it's not like, oh, I'm creating this person that's cool and I wonder what they're going to do and they have their own personality. It's just a burden.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just so, and I'm glad you're saying that, because a lot of people want, and I used to do this, and this is something else I see out there, is like, you know, I think there's a lot of like, it's a burden, but blah, blah, blah. And I feel like I was telling you today before we hit record, like, I'm in a mood right now. I'm in a mood. I hate it. I hate it right now.
Yeah.
I don't hate my mother. I
Right.
don't hate.
Yeah, I've seen some people be like, "Well, it's an honor." Guess what? When my mom was in the hospital and she finally came out of the state that she was in, and I talked to her about everything that had happened, how long she had been there, and everything else, I said she was thankful and grateful for all that I had done, even though she could hardly conceptualize everything that I had been doing for the last 50 days.
Yeah.
And I said, Mom, it's an honor. Well, it was an honor after 50 days. It's been 3 years now. And it's not an honor when I go to pick her up for an appointment and she's literally smeared with feces
Yeah.
because nobody has, what she
Yeah.
told them to go away. She can handle everything by herself. And she had diarrhea all over the bathroom and then rolled her walker through it and then sat in it. And so now I have to get an aide to help me rush and clean her up because I picked her up in just enough time to get to whatever appointment we
Right.
have to get to. And it's a horrible, disgusting mess. And I need them to clean the carpet while we're gone.
Right.
That's not an honor. It's not an
Well,
honor.
and thank you. And I just want to say thank you for talking about poop,
Oh, yeah.
because it is a very under discussed thing that you have to deal with.
And I think a lot of people don't know that goes hand in hand with dementia and aging. When stuff starts to go wrong in your brain, the thing in your brain that tells you when it is time to go to the bathroom stops working.
And
So
then even if you manage to go, like whether or not what to do after you go, and it's not, and like, I think people are underprepared for the amount of closeness they're going to have to their loved one's body.
Yeah.
It's
not
very hard.
It's very hard.
And I think, like you say, it's just,
especially when it's a person that used to be in charge of you. And again, it's different when it's your kid. When it's your kid, you grow up seeing their body. You bathe them every day. You see them growing. You help them get dressed. So then if they come to you as a teenager and they're like, oh, I got a problem with my toe, or I got this boil, or whatever it is.
Right.
It's no big deal because you've been looking at that body and raising it up, and it's your kid. But when it's your parent, and, as happened when I tried to have my mom over for Thanksgiving last year, and she has a huge blowout.
Right.
And I didn't bring any extra diapers.
Yes.
And I've got to lay her down on towels on the bed and get someone to help me try and get her clean. She can't get into the tub. I got to go in the shower with her and hold her. It's sucky.
There's also like grief that goes with that. There's like, it's like, this is horrible.
This is the lady that 3.5 years ago, she was like, I heard about this new Astoria lunch place. Let's go there and have salads.
Right.
Or like, yeah, I want to come over to your house and watch the Thanksgiving Day parade, and I'm going to help you cook, and we're going to make pie and drink wine. And I mean, this lady was my best friend. She was my best female friend and had been my entire life. And now she's this person that can't control when she goes to the bathroom and likes stuff that she didn't used to like, and has a lot wrong with her, and says stuff that's really disturbing to servers. So like, sometimes I can't take her to restaurants because they don't know what she's talking about. And sometimes she said that she wants to kill me, and
and then it's all of those emotions. And I just think about like all the times, like I was like waist deep in whatever kind of bathroom or shower or whatever situation. And you're like, what? It's just, you're just like, what is happening? Like what, and you can't go talk to your mom about it.
Right. And I think that it's mostly women. Mostly women, and it's mostly women at least 40, if not older. Mm-hmm. And this is the time in a woman's life when they start to go through perimenopause and menopause, where they realize, like, I have a whole bunch more life I want to live. I have a bunch of shit I want to do that I have lists now. I am tired of putting up with everybody's crap. I'm tired of making all the food. I'm tired of doing all the chores. I'm going to go to this with these people, and I'm going to go take a girls trip, and I'm going to go on vacation by myself, and I'm going to go out for dinner to a cool bar and have a Caesar salad and fries and a glass of wine. And you're robbed of that. This is the last active years I have of my life, and I have to choose every weekend day if I'm going to go spend it taking care of stuff for my mom and taking her around here and taking her for a drive and taking her somewhere to see things that she wants to see, or to the coffee shop that she likes, blowing my whole day. Or I get to go outside for a hike and do something for me. And it's really the guilt you have in making that decision. Honestly, it's going to sound really terrible, but one of the great things that my sister gives me is the reminder of how our mother was when we were little. She couldn't be bothered. We were Gen Xers. We were latchkey kids. And when we would come to her and say that we were bored, she would say, well, there's plenty of housework to do. And you know what one of her favorite expressions was? And I have used this expression back to her. And you're going to get all kind of comments about what a horrible person I am. She would say, I'm not the entertainment committee.
Yeah.
And I say that to my mom now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gave my mom back a story that she gave me when I was little. And she said, "Now you like macaroni and cheese, don't you?" Because it was my favorite food. And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "What if you had macaroni and cheese every day?" And I'm like, "That would be great." And she said, "What if you had it 3 meals a day, every meal, every single day?" And I was like, "That would be awesome." And she's like, "What if that was all you could have? You can't have hot dogs. You can't have French fries. You can't have fried chicken. It's just mac and cheese over and over. And we're all going to have pizza on pizza night, but you get mac and cheese." And I stared, even my little brain, I was like, "Oh, that doesn't sound good." And she's like,
No.
"But I mean, you love mac and cheese, right?" And I'm like, "Right." And she's like, "That's how I feel about you.
I love it.
I love you very much. You're my favorite thing. You're my favorite food. But sometimes I need a break and I need to have something else." And she would turn and say to me throughout my younger years of childhood, "Remember the macaroni." That was her code for, I need a little back off. Get off me. I need a little time. And
I think that is the best way I've ever heard that.
it's great, and I'm using that back to her now when she calls me and she's like, "Well, I'm bored and I used to have this book about birds and you took my bird book." And I'm like, "Mom, you can open that book for 5 fucking years. I didn't know you wanted the
Right.
book." You know, it's like, "Well, there's nothing to do. I went out in the hall and they're just playing the TV and everybody's sleeping." And I'm like, "I'm not the entertainment committee."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And she's like, "Well, are you going to come out here this weekend?" And I'm like, "Remember the macaroni." Like, I love you a lot, but also I need to live my life too.
Right.
So,
Right.
and she understands that
Right.
because it's a children's concept. She introduced
Yeah.
it to me as a child, and she can
Well, and she probably like remembers,
oh yeah,
like
she
there's
told me.
always like more of that, like they remember more
Yeah.
from before,
Yeah. And
But I
that's what
love,
it's like, I'm doing that in revenge, but these tools are a good way for me to level set with her. Like, I'm actually not coming out there this weekend.
right.
I have things
Right.
to do Saturday and I'm going to do things I want to do on Sunday.
Right. Well, and like my mom doesn't, a lot of times she's sleeping when I'm there. So like we don't talk, but like every now and then I'll be like, all right, well, I got to go. And she'll be like, well, what are you doing? And I'm like,
Yeah.
none of your business.
She called me up today. She was like, "Happy Easter." I'm like, "Well, Mom, I mean, this is just how it is with somebody with dementia." I'm like, "Well, thanks. Easter was actually 2 days ago. It was Sunday and
Right.
today's Tuesday." "Was it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, what are you guys doing for Easter?" "Still not
Yeah.
Easter."
Yeah. Yeah.
"Well, we
Well,
didn't do anything." And I
yeah.
told you we weren't doing anything for Easter.
Yeah.
My
I
kid was
know.
with his dad's and I went for a hike. That's what I did for Easter. And it was lovely and I had a great time. And she's like, "Are you coming out here?" And I'm like, "I'm working right now,
Right.
but remember, I'm going to be out really early tomorrow to take you to the dentist." And she's like, "Oh, do you think we'll have time for lunch afterwards?" And I'm like, "First of all,
Uh,
nobody's serving lunch at 8:30 in the morning. Second of all, I got to come back and go to work."
right. Yeah. I usually like now, like if my mom asks, I'll be like, well, if, the kids are home, both of my boys are in college. So like they were, if they're home, I'll be like, well, they're home or, my husband works like 80 hours a week. So I'm like,
Mm,
well, if I get home at the right time before he hops on his evening calls, I might get to sit down for, or whatever. It's like,
Great.
I've got plenty to do. Thanks for
Yeah.
asking. One of the
It's
good
really
things.
hard for my mom because she's bored, but there's nothing that she can do because of
Yeah.
how her brain is. So all her life when she was bored, she read. She went to the
Mm,
library
same with my
every
mom.
week and picked up stacks and stacks of books and would just sit for hours and read. And she can't concentrate on books
Hmm.
now. We did find she can read children's books a little bit
Right.
if she reads them out loud and then they're
Hmm.
not super complicated and they have a lot of pictures.
Hmm.
So I bring her out like children's books and she's actually enjoying them. But,
Yeah.
she's bored and I'm sorry she's bored. There's nothing I can do about that, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I don't know the different phases of in the different types of dementia. And I know your mom's situation is a little bit different. But right now, my mom is in a phase where she travels to a bunch of interesting places. So she says, so like she's not bored because she's very busy doing XYZ. And for the most part, it's a lot of fun. And so I just try to go with the flow with that. But, there was a period of time before she was cognitively impaired where she was just bedbound
Yeah.
and like, I hate it here.
Yeah.
But she also struggled with like, she didn't want to be around other people
Mm.
because like they got a lot of activities where my mom, people
Well, when
come
she
in and
was in
do
assisted
concerts.
living, they do a lot of activities in assisted living, and there are
Yeah.
some really great assisted living facilities,
Yeah.
really nice, and they do a lot of stuff. I mean, they're very expensive, of course, but there
Right.
are very nice facilities where the people really care about what they're doing. The place is very nice. Everything is clean. There's lots of stuff to do. But now that she's in memory care, which they kind of hustled her in there. They were going to like leave
Yeah.
her in assisted living for a little bit when she first arrived. And then apparently she was trying to go down the stairs with her walker.
Oh, yeah. That's fun.
And honestly, like I'm such a bad person because they told me about it and I was like, oh, what if that had just happened?
Yeah. I get it. I get it.
And then that would have been the end. Like, so, of course, I've been through all kinds of therapy about this. And I talked to my therapist about this before. Like, I had to go through the whole mourning process
Yeah.
because I've lost my mom.
Yeah.
I've lost the woman that I loved that was my best friend. And now I have this person that I have to take care of who is kind of like my mom, but not.
Yeah.
And just
I
creates
get it.
problems for me. And that's really tough.
It is. It's so tough. And I would love to have you back on because I think that whole talking about that piece of it, especially as two women who care for their mothers specifically and who also had very close relationships.
Yeah.
I think that is something. And then also this like idea of like, what, when is this going to be over?
Right. I mean, there are people in my caregiving groups online that are like, oh, I've been doing this for 8 years. And I'm like, 8 fucking years? Just kill
Yeah.
me now. Like, I can't
Yeah.
stay straight.
And I think that's an important piece of all this. It is part of, go ahead.
Don't. My mom will spontaneously just say like phrases from songs, like her brain just like will pick up music. But I was out visiting her, taking her somewhere a couple of weeks ago, and we're going down the hallway towards the exit, and she just out of the blue turns to me and she goes, I'm going to live to be 103. And I whipped my head around like that girl in The Exorcist. I was so horrified at what she said. She's 82. And I completely could not hide the horror on my face. And I go, what the fuck are you talking about? You're going to live to be 103. And she goes, I play safe for you and me because I'm no fool. She was singing the Jiminy Cricket song where he says he's going to live to be 83 and 100. And I was like, oh my God. Okay, Mom.
But now she knows that you're like, what?
I've told that story in my caregiving group. Like when she said that, just out of the blue, I whipped my head around. I'm like, I can't do this for 20 more years.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is hilarious. And I love that you shared it because I think everyone has felt that way. I have had that feeling today, actually.
And it's actually, I mean, a different side of my family, but literally my paternal grandmother lived to be 102. So when my mom said that, I was like, no.
We've got some oldies in our family too. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Oh my gosh, Nina, I could talk to you all day. I think I say this to all the caregivers because like I pick caregivers that I'm like, this is like my person,
Yeah.
But I love talking to you. I do want to seriously have you back on because we have so much more we can talk about. But I do want to thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for leaving it all on the table, saying the hard things, stuff we're all feeling. And I think the more we say the hard things, we talk about the difficult things out loud, it makes us feel not so alone and not a horrible person.
It just helps you get through it,
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of us in this boat. It's a big boat.
It is. It is. Nina, I will make sure to tag your TikTok in the show notes. Is there any other thing that you'd like to share with our caregiver listeners today?
I have written quite a bit about my mom's caregiving journey. It's on my website, ninarightnow.com, WRITE. And I do have a book manuscript that I am looking for a publisher for. about the
Yes.
story of what happened to my mom, as well as tips and tricks for navigating this journey. So, if you know any publishers, hook me up.
Yeah, for sure. Is information about that will that be on your website when that,
Yeah, I'll put
all
that
that
on there
happens too?
when I, yep,
Nice. I love it. Books are great.
yeah,
I think there should be more writers, more caregivers on TikTok, all of these things.
I do
So
too. Yeah,
let's
it's been
get the
my
word
pleasure.
out. All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining me today, and thank all of you for listening to the From Guilt to Good podcast. To access additional caregiver resources, including how to get in touch with Nina, to support our show, and connect with us on social, check out the show notes. We are changing the conversation around caregiving one episode at a time. And remember, you can be a good caregiver and still have a life outside of caring for your parents.